It was a bright Saturday afternoon when the aroma of roasted garlic and herbs wafted through the air, infusing the house with a sense of warmth and anticipation. The family gathered around the long oak dining table, its polished surface reflecting the golden light, but instead of feeling at home, I sensed an impending storm brewing. My name is Julia. I'm 30 years old, married to Marco for 5 years, and ever since I entered this wealthy family, I've been at war with my mother-in-law Eleonora. As the matriarch of the family, Eleonora had a gift for turning even the most innocuous gathering into a passive-aggressive battleground. The tension was palpable as I set the table. Each clink of the utensils against the china felt like a countdown to the inevitable onslaught that awaited me. I caught a glimpse of Eleonora, standing at the head of the table, her pristine, designer dress a stark contrast to my handcrafted outfit that I'd proudly made for this occasion. I could almost hear her thoughts. Who does she think she is? Another gold digger trying to snatch my son's wealth. As we all took our seats, a round of polite inquiries began. Yet I felt her piercing gaze fixed on me, dissecting every tiny detail of my appearance with disdain. The conversation shifted to my business, my handmade crafts that I had poured my heart and soul into. I had always hoped to share my passions with my new family, but Eleonora had other plans. Without a hint of hesitation, she cut through the chatter, her voice dripping with condescension. So Julia, how's that little craft business of yours going? Still trying to get rich off of homemade knickknacks? Laughter erupted around the table, deafening and cruel, and I felt the heat rise to my cheeks, embarrassment mixed with anger. My heart raced in response, pounding in my chest like a caged animal trying to escape. I could see heads turning toward me, waiting for my reaction. The words were loaded, and every laugh felt like salt in an open wound. Instead of defending myself, I clenched my fists under the table, fighting back tears. I reminded myself that I was stronger than this, that I had fought too hard to get where I was, and that her belittling remarks wouldn't crush me. It's going well actually. I'm improving all the time, I managed to say, my voice steady despite the trembling I felt inside. I caught Marco's eye momentarily, hoping for a flicker of support, but there it was, his familiar indecision masked behind the tension. He was caught in the middle, torn between his loyalty to me and his oppressive loyalty to his mother. I glanced around at the rest of the family, their faces the embodiment of discomfort, but no one dared to say a word. They were accustomed to Eleonora's dominance, and I was the unwelcome interloper. In that moment, surrounded by laughter that rang hollow and disrespect that felt like a dagger, a realization settled deep within me. I could no longer hide or allow this to continue without repercussions. I deserve love and respect in my husband's family, and one day, the truth will come to light. I whispered under my breath, feeling the spark of determination ignite within me. I would gather evidence, I would strategize, and I would confront Eleonora. She could underestimate me now, but I refused to play the role of the victim any longer. As the meal progressed and Eleonora launched into yet another critique, I steeled myself, knowing that this would not be the end of my story. I wouldn't just sit here taking her punches. I would prepare for the inevitable confrontation. Whatever it took, I would unveil the truth and reclaim my dignity in this family. As I sat in the dim light of my small home office, I was transported back to the beginning of my relationship with Marco. I could still feel the thrill of our first date, the way his laughter echoed in my ears like music as we strolled through the local park. I was drawn to his kindness, his easygoing nature, and the way he made me feel seen, a feeling I hadn't experienced much in my life. I came from a modest background where every penny counted, where ambition was a necessity rather than an option. And when Marco proposed, I felt like I had won the lottery, until reality hit. Flashbacks tumbled forth like a montage from a movie, painting a vivid picture of our wedding day. I remember standing at the altar, surrounded by flowers and laughter, staring into Marco's warm brown eyes, filled with love and promise. But lurking beneath all that beauty was Eleonora, her expression as tight and critical as ever. Even then, there was an air of apprehension. She stood to the side, her icy gaze boring into me, as if scrutinizing a piece of merchandise at a market. In the following weeks and months, I noticed the cracks that began to form in my fairy tale. Celebrations with Marco's family always felt overshadowed by Eleonora's trumped-up expectations. "You must make sure to fit in, Julia," she would say, as if I were a puzzle piece trying to find my place in an elaborate, pristine picture. But every attempt I made to connect felt like I was trying to merge oil and water. Whenever I showcased my handcrafted pieces or talked about my burgeoning business, Eleonora would remain cold, making backhanded comments about my work ethic or the poor taste of my crafts. Each remark sliced deeper than the last, branding me a failure in her eyes. Katerina, my sister-in-law, was not a gentle breeze in this storm. Like her mother, she was quick to criticize, whipping up tales of grandeur about her own children and their accomplishments while casting me as the eternal underachiever. I could feel the jealousy radiating off her whenever I received a compliment from anyone in the family. It was as if my mere existence was a threat to her meticulously crafted image. I started to see the pattern. Every snide comment, every side-eye directed toward me, every time someone brought up my struggles as if they were a cherished family joke. This was all orchestrated. Marco, loving but indecisive, often faltered between siding with his wife or placating his mother. His confusion often left me feeling like an outsider in the very family I had wished to join. I scolded myself for wanting his approval, for the countless times I bent over backward to make sure my meals were perfect for family dinners, that I dressed appropriately, and that I maintained a smile even while I felt like crumbling. My soirees, where I invited his family to enjoy what I believed was an extension of my culture, and welcome them with open arms, only ignited Eleonora's disdain. "You're too simple, Julia. We don't need to see the little things you value. Our family is above that," she would say, leaving me feeling small and pitiful. When I tried to connect by asking Marco's siblings about their lives, they would respond with tight-lipped smiles, trying to gauge their mother's reaction before offering up any warmth or kindness. This continual cycle of belittlement and criticism made me feel trapped, a feeling that grew heavier with each passing family event. I often mused over my memories alone in my office, questioning where I had gone wrong. What more could I do to be accepted? I poured myself into my crafts and my business, using it as my refuge, a place where I could be proud of my skills and progress without being judged. Yet notwithstanding my successes, I still craved their acceptance, the fundamental recognition of being included, and that emotional satisfaction that I belonged. I had noticed Eleonora's calculating nature more than once, revealing tiny glimpses of her true self. A woman who had been in control for so long that the thought of losing it, even to me, someone she deemed inferior, seemed unbearable to her. During an afternoon visit, while sipping tea with the women of the family, I could read the subtle glances she exchanged with Katerina, as if they were sharing a secret code, crafting a plan to keep me at bay. The more I dwelled on all these events, the more clarity emerged regarding the subtle mercilessness I've endured. These little acts of sabotage were calculated. It wasn't just jealousy or disapproval. They were weapons, wielded skillfully by Eleonora and her accomplices to undermine my sense of self-worth. And then, like a fog slowly lifting, a realization dawned on me. These acts weren't mere accidents or misunderstandings. They were attempts to push me out of the family, to label me as the intruder who would never truly belong. I found myself once again in my office, staring at my wall filled with photos and crafts that represented my achievements. With every memory, I could feel the fire inside me reigniting, fanning the flames of determination. No more would I let them define my worth. I had to gather evidence against them, against Eleonora and all her poisonous whispers. It was time for me to confront the truth skillfully, to begin my plan of unmasking the lies and protecting not just my business, but my dignity as well. These thoughts circled in my mind, intertwining with my emotions as I prepared for the next family gathering where I would no longer be the victim. I was ready to reclaim my narrative. The upcoming family gathering loomed over me like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. I could already hear Eleonora's laughter in my mind, sweet on the surface, but sharp enough to cut through any facade I might put up. I steeled myself, determined to confront the chaos she stirred in my life. It was time to gather evidence of her manipulative tactics, and break free from her control. After that painful dinner, I shifted my mindset. I became keenly aware of the family dynamics, observing the subtle ways in which Eleonora praised or criticized. I took mental notes, honing in on the moments where her gaze turned cold, where her sarcasm dripped like poison. Each family member had their role, but Eleonora was undeniably the queen in this hierarchy, flanked by a loyal court. Katerina, Marco's sister, was quick to echo her mother's sentiments, tossing me aside with her own biting comments, which only served to deepen my resolve. With my notebook open, I began a secret documentation of every jab thrown my way, each smirk and eye roll. My entries became a chronicle of humiliation, an account of every moment I felt that familial warmth chill to ice. I dwelled on them at night, hoping to fortify my courage. My notes not only served as a record, but also as a diary of my growing determination to rise above their disdain. I felt something shift inside me, growing stronger with each criticism. I no longer wanted to just bear the weight of their comments. I wanted to expose them, to lay bare their manipulations for all to see. I felt like a detective piecing together a case that would unveil the malice festering beneath their polite smiles. One evening, I finally decided to voice my frustration during a quiet moment with Marco. I feel like your mother constantly undermines me. It's damaging to our relationship, I expressed, keeping my voice steady despite the turmoil swirling inside. Watching him shift uncomfortably was painful. He seemed caught between defending me and aligning himself with his mother. Mom can be strong-willed, you have to see that, he replied. His words felt like a dismissal, a barrier that frustrated me even further. I wanted him to choose my side, but it was clear he was ensnared in Eleonora's web. But I wouldn't let his hesitation stop me. I knew I had to build my case, to shield myself from their attacks. Every compliment from my customers at my craft shop became a balm for my wounded spirit. They saw my worth. They believed in my vision. I poured everything into creating stunning pieces, driven by the support of those who appreciated my work. As my confidence began to grow, I started using this momentum to fuel my investigation into the smear campaign against me. Then I unearthed a particularly damaging rumor that Eleonora had spun. A lie that implied I was nothing but a gold digger seeking to snatch Marco's riches. I felt a visceral reaction in my gut upon learning that my own family was spreading vile fabrications about me. To add insult to injury, one evening I stumbled upon a cruel message in the family group chat from Katerina, declaring, "Honestly, I think Julia is just in it for the money. Have you seen her crafts? They're embarrassing." I could feel rage bubbling within me, an urgent push that ignited my desire to confront this narrative. These attacks were not mere misunderstandings. They were ruthless tactics meant to undermine my identity, planting seeds of doubt in Marco's mind. So, I made a plan. I would gather tangible evidence of their lies and prepare for the confrontation that would finally expose Eleonora's malevolence. I began to connect the dots of their collusion against me, outlining how Eleonora and Katerina had worked together to create a false narrative. My notebook became an arsenal, filled with quotes and observations that would prove their character and motives. I knew I had to wait for the right moment to present it all, to peel back the layers of deceit slowly yet decisively. However, unease clung to me like a shadow. What if Marco dismissed my findings? What if he chose to believe his family over me? Visualizing that scenario, I felt my heart twist. I loved him deeply, and the thought of losing him felt unbearable. As the day of the gathering approached, I rehearsed in front of the mirror, working on the tone of my voice, the steadfastness of my stance. I envisioned standing before my family, unmasking the vicious lies while retaining my composure. I maintained hope that perhaps this confrontation could bring a change, a shift in how I was perceived. I was determined to transform my pain into power, to reclaim my narrative instead of cowering beneath the weight of their judgment. This time, I was ready to fight back, not out of anger, but out of a desire to reclaim my dignity. No more silence. No more hiding. I was prepared to confront Eleonora and expose her deceit once and for all. The day of the family gathering finally arrived, and an intense mix of anticipation and dread washed over me. I dressed carefully, choosing a deep blue dress that made me feel confident and powerful, symbolizing the storm I knew was brewing beneath my calm exterior. Every scent of the home-cooked meal that greeted me at Marco's parents' house wrapped me in nostalgia, but also heightened my anxiety. As the evening progressed, the laughter of family members filled the air, but I felt it beneath the surface. Each chuckle was a prelude to the tension I was preparing to unleash. Eleonora moved through the crowd like the queen she was, expertly masking her contempt with laughter and charm. Each smile she flashed cut through me. Her gaze turned cold when it landed on me, and I felt every criticism that lay in wait behind her eyes. Dinner began, and after a few minutes, the snide remarks emerged. "Julia, you should try my famous lasagna. I promise it's better than your crafts," Eleonora teased, light laughter ringing from her lips while the table erupted in an echo of chuckles and gasps. The laughter intensified around me, but I felt the isolating silence blanket my end of the table. Each quip felt like a poke, and I could feel my brain processing it all, turning into a cocktail of determination and fury. Fury roiled within me, but I forced myself to smile and maintain a facade of calm. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I needed to hold steady. Marco caught my eye, and I saw uncertainty dancing across his features. Still, I decided to bide my time, knowing a bigger confrontation loomed on the horizon. After dinner, once the family settled down for dessert, I seized the moment. "Can I have everyone's attention?" I called out, each word resonating with a confidence I didn't fully feel. The room fell silent, my relatives turning to look at me. Eleonora's expression transformed from surprise to palpable tension, and I took a deep breath, ready to expose the truth. "I want to address the unfounded rumors about my intentions with Marco," I began, leaning into my own resolve. The atmosphere thickened as unease coursed around the room. "Eleonora, it's time we talk about the comments you've made about me and how I'm only with Marco for his money." The words spilled out, heavy yet liberating. I reached for my notebook, my silent witness to months of hurtful remarks. As I began to list the insults hurled my way, from casual slights to blatant accusations, the effect was palpable. Katerina's face betrayed her discomfort as she realized the extent of the damage. I could see Marco's brow furrow as he absorbed my words. "Julia, this is absurd." Eleonora shot back. "You're twisting this to make me look like the villain." I could sense the anger in her voice, but beneath it lay fear. Fear that her control was slipping. "Am I?" I challenged, my voice steadier. "I'm here to reclaim my voice. I deserve better than to be cast as the villain in a story you invented." I looked around the room, my family's expressions revealing the internal struggle between loyalty and truth. For so long, I had felt silenced, but now I was finally speaking out. Eleonora's expression shifted from anger to defensiveness, but I pressed on. "It's clear you have been trying to manipulate my relationship with Marco. Your constant jabs affect not just me but our relationship." As the tension mounted, I could feel the weight of my words reverberating in the air. "I knew I didn't belong here," I admitted, the pain in my voice surfacing. "Your dismissive comments and condescending remarks have left me feeling unwanted. I'm not just fighting for myself, I'm fighting for our family's unity." Silence enveloped the room as my words hung in the air. I noticed Marco's brows knitting together in thought, the gears turning in his mind. This was it. The pivotal moment we could either forge together or succumb to Eleonora's manipulations. "I won't be pushed around anymore," I declared firmly, locking eyes with Eleonora. "It's time for us to acknowledge how your words hurt, and how we can change this family's narrative." "Mom, listen to her," Marco added, his voice steady but shaking slightly. "You've been so focused on control that you didn't see how it affected us." Eleonora fumed, but her resistance was cracking. "You think you can come in here and disrupt our family? Who do you think you are?" But I saw her falter, the years of control over her family slipping as the truth settled undermined her authority. "This isn't about disruption. It's about healing," I countered, my voice rising in strength. "We can't build a future if we're mired in the past. I'm not your enemy, Eleonora." As the confrontation escalated, I could see the gears turning in the minds of my relatives, weighing their loyalties. The room crackled with unresolved tension, and clarity washed over me. I had unearthed an essential truth. That I was not alone in this struggle. That my desire for a united family coincided with Marco's and even the quiet nods of support I felt from others in attendance. In that moment, I recognized what was at stake. Not just my relationship with Marco, but the future of our family. I stood firm, refusing to be drowned in the tide of negativity. Facing the storm that had long overshadowed any love or respect, I finally felt liberated. As Eleonora's defenses crumbled, I looked at Marco. His expression had shifted from incredulity to determination. And in that moment, I knew I had taken back my narrative. No longer would I allow others to define my worth or my place within the family. I was ready to stand tall in the light of truth, no matter what came next. As the confrontation intensified, I could feel the weight of all those suppressed emotions, like a storm preparing to break loose. The room was thick with a mixture of disbelief and palpable tension. Eleonora's face flushed deep crimson, a clear sign that her control was slipping right beneath her polished exterior. It was time to lay bare the ugly truths that had long simmered beneath the surface of our family dynamics. Let's not ignore the elephant in the room, I declared, the adrenaline surging through my veins, adding fire to my conviction. It's not just about me anymore. It's about how this family functions, how your words ripple through us all. Each jab and insult was a thread in a web you meticulously wove. I could see Katerina shifting uncomfortably in her chair, the reality of my observation sinking in. And I knew I had to continue. Eleonora, I said, turning my focus back to her. You've hinged your sense of power on manipulating perceptions and controlling narratives. Your need to feel superior has driven you to fabricate lies. But I refuse to allow your schemes to fracture what we could become. Every word felt like a revelation. A thunderous declaration challenging the facade she had maintained for far too long. Just as I bolstered my resolve to outline the patterns I had experienced firsthand, Marco interjected softly. Mom, can we step back a moment? I think it's crucial for us to hear Julia's side. His words, a lifeline amidst the tension, caused a stirring in the room. It was a challenge to his mother, asking her to confront the chaos she had created. Eleonora shot him a look that could slice through glass, and I sensed the shift in familial loyalty. I saw some relatives leaning forward, eyes darting between Marco and me, as if they feared a wave of honesty might drown Eleonora. My family has always been supportive, but you've turned them into your soldiers, I continued, gesturing to my relatives. Your whispers have colored their perceptions of me, and that has meant bearing the burden of falsehoods. You've constructed an entire scheme that seeks to undermine our relationship. You're playing the victim here, Julia. Eleonora snapped, her voice rising with fury. How dare you attempt to paint me as the villain of this story? You've misrepresented everything just to gain sympathy. Have I? I challenged, the hurt from her words pushing me to be stronger. You've been orchestrating your web of deceit, attempting to isolate me from the family. I could see it every time you placed doubt in Marco's mind. My heart pounded as I laid it bare. This was my moment to wield truth like a sword. Let's discuss the rumors that have surrounded me. Those tales you spun about my motivations for being with Marco, I said, forcing myself to remain steadfast. I overheard you speak of my intentions when you believed I wasn't within earshot, whispering that I would leave him once I had what I wanted. With every detail I unveiled, I could see the eyes of my family widen. I could sense their loyalty shifting away from Eleonora's narrative. The whispers among the family began, a murmur of disbelief about what I was saying. That wasn't my intention, Julia. You misinterpreted. Eleonora sputtered, scrambling to find her footing as the truth slowly closed in around her. No. Interrupta. You did mean it. I have the proof to show exactly what you've said in your effort to manipulate perceptions. I have records of conversations that reveal your disdain, the ways you tried to paint me as someone only after money. I drew upon the notes I had taken, the very documentation that had fueled my determination throughout the struggle. Here, I said, flipping through pages and glancing at the scribbled words. Look at this. You called me the gold digger in front of family. You spread that story without thinking about how much it would hurt me, our relationship, and how it would fracture the very fabric of this family. The room was silent now, the gravity of my claims hanging in the air like a fog. Those words, I continued, they crawl through conversations, affecting not only how you treat me but how the family views me. Everyone felt obligated to join in the derision, because they didn't see the truth behind your sad narrative. I locked eyes with Marco, who was staring wide-eyed, caught between his allegiance to his mother and the truth I brought to light. Don't you see? I pressed on. This doesn't just affect me. It impacts Marco, our chance at a future. Your manipulations are poison, infecting the family with division and distrust. I felt a rush of satisfaction as I pointed out the very weaponization of emotion she had wielded. But this satisfaction was offset by the tangible tension in the room. It's not too late, I argued. We can shift the narrative together. We can become a family that supports each other instead of tearing each other apart with cruel jokes and insidious rumors. I felt my voice quaver, but the strength in my conviction crystallized. This was about more than my battles. It was about the potential for healing. Eleonora clutched the edge of the table, her knuckles whitening. You think you can change me? She whispered, disbelief laced with anger. I am not going to be interrogated by you in my own home. Change doesn't come easy, but it begins with acknowledgement. I replied, my heart racing as the room buzzed with tension. You don't have to hide behind your control anymore. You can embrace honesty. You can be better. I could see doubt flickering across the faces of my relatives, and every second seemed to stretch into eternity. I turned back to Marco, hoping desperately for his support. I am asking you to stand with me. You deserve to see the truth as I do, to share in love, not animosity. His expression softened, and for a brief moment, I saw glimpses of the man I loved, a hint of the unity we had built. With Eleonora's resolve wavering, the atmosphere began to shift. The web she had spun was slowly unraveling in the face of our collective truth. Moments of silence slipped by, almost tangible as we all absorbed the gravity of the confrontation unfolding. It was the harbinger of possibility, maybe even redemption. Just then, one of our relatives, someone who had remained silent until now, spoke up. I have seen how you've treated Julia, Eleonora. It's time for us to stop ignoring it. A ripple of murmurs rolled through the family, as others began to slowly nod in agreement. Eleonora's expression faltered, her usual confidence draining from her face. You don't see what she's doing, she stammered, but the remaining support felt thin. Her words met only with silence. As the truth loomed in the air, I realized this battle was not just mine. It was a collective awakening. And though storms may rage, we stood strong, ready to reshape what being a family truly meant, ready to confront the harsh reality that had once shackled us. The moment had arrived for us to redefine our bonds, and in that space, I felt hope. The journey toward healing had just begun. The room was thick with silence, tension crackling in the air like static before a storm. I watched as Eleonora's bravado crumbled, exposing her vulnerability for the first time in years. And it felt like the first ray of sunlight slicing through a dreary winter's day. The fight within me was not just for my own peace. It was about reshaping the entire landscape of our family. As murmurs of discontent echoed around the room, I could feel a shift in energy. My relatives, who had always been caught in Eleonora's web of manipulation, were slowly starting to see the truth I'd brought to light. It was as if the blindfolds they wore had been pulled away. And in that moment, I felt a surge of strength washing over me. Mom, we've seen how you've treated Julia. Marco spoke softly but assertively, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. I've tried to defend you, but I can't keep pretending that everything is okay. You've driven a wedge between us. He paused, glancing at the faces of our family gathered around, taking in the change that seemed all too profound yet strangely liberating. I love Julia, and I refused to sit back and watch her be hurt by the very people who should cherish her. I felt my heart soar at his words, but a sliver of fear crept in as I thought about how Eleonora would react. Would this push her over the edge? Would she lash out again? Eleonora's eyes narrowed, her mask of control slipping further away. You're both being ridiculous, she exclaimed, her voice rising. You're too naive to see the danger in her. Julia has always had motives, and she's been playing you all along. It was the same old refrain, a last desperate attempt at salvaging her power. Enough, I declared, my voice ringing out with surprising authority as I confronted the spiraling chaos. The only danger here is the constant cycle of manipulation and deceit you maintain, and I'm done being part of it. I felt an exhilaration coursing through me, fueled by Marco's support and the bravery of our family slowly awakening from the haze. It was now or never. All I've ever wanted is to belong, to be part of this family, I pressed on. But I cannot do that while always feeling like I carry the weight of your cruelty. Relationships should bring joy, not contempt. The truth poured from my heart. Words I had held inside for far too long. As my emotions cascaded like a waterfall, I saw other family members nodding in agreement. Pockets of support stirred among them, as if I had ignited something deep within. All of us tired of living under Eleonora's shadow. Together, we can build a bond that isn't bound by fear or manipulation. We can redefine our family, I continued, gathering strength from the growing chorus of support surrounding me. We can support one another, celebrate victories, and learn from mistakes rather than using them as weapons. In that moment, I realized that I was no longer just fighting for myself. I was fighting for the unity or their part of the family, too. A unity we all desperately needed. Eleonora trembled with rage, her face contorting into a mask of fury and disbelief as gazes shifted from her to me and back again. You think you can just waltz in and change everything, don't you? What I've done has always been for the good of this family, she shouted, her voice wavering with uncontained emotion. Good for this family? Marco almost laughed, disbelief coloring his tone. You've only created rifts and driven wedges. Good families lift each other up. They don't tear each other down. A moment of fear gripped me as I wondered how far she would go to reclaim her sense of power. I could feel my palms sweating, heart racing, but I met her gaze with a determination that nearly rattled the walls around us. I was ready for her next move. The family with me, my heart thrumming wildly, felt almost magical. This newfound strength igniting a fire within me. Eleonora, feeling the walls closing in on her, shot daggers from her eyes, but the pain she'd inflicted upon me, upon all of us, was on full display now for everyone to see. Mom, Marco said, his tone softer but firm. You can't keep using guilt and control. It's damaging. You need to let us be who we truly are, not a reflection of your demands. There was a palpable rise in solidarity as another relative offered their support, speaking volumes about the change brewing beneath the surface. It's true, Eleonora. We've watched your constant barrage of jabs, your refusal to let others shine. We can't keep hiding from it anymore. You need to listen. It was one of Marco's cousins, a voice I hadn't expected to hear, but it sent ripples of strength through the room as more family members expressed agreement. As I looked around, I saw heads nodding, hands gripping chairs tighter, the unjust concepts that had been accepted for far too long crumbling in front of our very eyes. But Eleonora countered, desperation seeping into her voice. You are all betraying family values. Yet I could see the undeniable cracks in her facade, the way she trembled with insecurity as the family bonded together to counter her narrative. Family values don't come from manipulation and betrayal, I said, fighting to keep the fire in my voice. They come from honesty, empathy, and love, something we all deserve to give and receive. At that moment, I noticed Marco inching closer to my side. His expression transformed into determination, no longer a man torn between two worlds. Instead, he stood firmly beside me, a pillar of love and strength. The room began to shift like tectonic plates beneath the surface, revealing the truth that had long been buried. I felt the wave of hope swell. We could move past this. We could create a new reality grounded in support instead of suffocation. Let us learn from each other, foster an environment of growth, and create something beautiful. I emphasized, my heart swelling as the family rallied around me. Then, in a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, Eleonora's expression faltered. I could see recognition dawning in her eyes, as though she realized she couldn't retain her grip any longer. This isn't how I wanted any of this, she whispered, vulnerability lacing her words. Maybe it's time to reassess what you want, I replied gently, ready to extend an olive branch. We all have the power to change. We can do this together. The air felt lighter now, charged with hope, as I extended my hand towards Eleonora. I wasn't looking for a fight anymore, just a way to build bridges rather than walls. It was a plea for understanding that resonated within the hearts of my family. Potential for healing shimmered just beyond the horizon, and for the first time, I believed we could reach it together. As I extended my hand to Eleonora, I felt a mix of vulnerability and resolve. It was a symbol of hope, an invitation for us to seek understanding and healing after years of pain. The room held its breath, filled with tension yet buzzing with the potential for transformation. Eleonora stared at my outstretched hand, uncertainty flickering across her face. This was a pivotal moment. Would she accept this opportunity, or would fear drive her back into her protective shell? The air felt charged, my heart pounding in anticipation. "Mom!" Marco's voice broke through the silence, filled with an earnest wisdom that added weight to my gesture. "This is a chance for you and us to rebuild our family. Please take it." Tension filled the air as Eleonora slowly reached for my hand, her expression a mix of disbelief and willingness. When her fingers brushed against mine, an electrifying warmth spread throughout the room, a shared, unspoken agreement forming in that delicate moment. "I've been so lost," Eleonora whispered, her voice wavering with the weight of realization. "I thought I was doing what was best, but I see how I've pushed you all away." "Now we have a chance to change," I replied, my eyes locked on hers with unyielding hope. "We can rebuild and learn from one another." The sincerity of my words seemed to resonate, breaking through the centuries-old patterns of manipulation and misunderstanding. "Let's have family dinners where we can share stories," Marco proposed, embodying the spirit of unity that was stirring within us all. "Let's create a safe space where we can all speak our minds." Eleonora nodded, her resolve visibly strengthening. "I want that too. Let's learn from each other, not hide behind our walls anymore." The sincerity she exuded started to draw others in, revealing a side of her we had rarely seen. In that charged moment, I realized we were no longer alone. There was a rising tide of support, as family members began to participate in the conversation, echoing sentiments of loyalty and commitment to a more positive family dynamic. Family values shouldn't come from guilt and control, but from honesty and love, I urged, feeling connection strengthening among us as the common goal emerged, our collective future. As I looked around, I noticed Marco shifting closer to me, his presence steady and steadfast. There was a lightness in the room now, a palpable shift as Eleonora continued to speak. I realize now that I must let go of the fear and embrace the possibility of rebuilding relationships. The acknowledgement of her own shortcomings instead of the usual defiance was monumental, and it sent ripples of hope through the crowd of family gathered around us. "We will need time," she continued earnestly, "but I am committed to approaching this differently." The air felt lighter with every word she spoke, painting a picture of a healthy future where love replaced manipulation. One of our relatives raised a glass, bringing attention back to the moment. "To new beginnings," they declared, and soon voices of agreement filled the room, taking on a life of their own. "To new beginnings," the family echoed, and as we raised our glasses, I closed my eyes momentarily, feeling gratitude embrace me. It was a beautiful sight to see. We were weaving together a tapestry of love and understanding, one thread at a time. In that instant, I realized we had crossed a threshold, stepping into an era of transformation. We were bound not by obligation but by the love that blossomed in the air. A new reality filled with the promise of connection and empathy. I felt hope take root, watching as we embraced the possibility of a future grounded in love, nurture, and the willingness to grow together as a family. This was just the beginning, a chance to foster genuine relationships and